Okay, so for this week 17 TypeScript, we're going to end up following videos from Dave Gray. I really like Dave's content. I think it's really well done. And on the first video, he really walks you through how to set up on your local device, how to run TypeScript or install TypeScript and then run TypeScript locally. So when I went to do this, because I had a new Mac I hadn't used, I ended up having to do a couple of things, jumping over a couple of hoops to get it done. One of the things, and Todd had you do this at the beginning of this class, is to make sure you had. Um, oh, actually, yeah, this is actually part of what I ran into. Is I ended up having to use the more native um, terminal for Macs. So FYI, I don't think this is an issue on Windows side, but for the Mac side, I did. So I ended up also using, now this is not required, I'm just giving you kind of what I ran into, was MVM. MVM is a node version manager, and I really like this because I can in the future have different versions of Node. And if this is not something, doing more coding you see yourself doing, you can if you've already got Node installed. But here's what I ran into was that part of what happened was there's something called the Node Package Manager. And the Node Package Manager, and I think that's also version, yeah, so it's not V, but it's probably just V for instead of dash dash, but it doesn't matter. But it's the package manager that comes with Node. And in order for me to install TypeScript, which he shows you how to do at the command line, I had to, after I got even the latest version of Node, I had to update my package manager. So I did it. I did it because I wanted to do it for me. I wanted to have that set up. But I just want you to know going into this video, right? Like the very first part of this, he talks about first how to set it up, how to compile your TypeScript files. And this is where I'm, giving you a little preview of what you're about to learn. And I'm actually going to show you, but I'm also going to give you an alternative, right? So I just kind of wanted to step you through some of the things that I ran into when trying to set up my environment, just some of the got-yous. But if this is something you see yourself doing more coding of, then I definitely recommend, attempting to get this set up locally. Once I kind of figured out some of the tweaks I needed to do, it wasn't a big deal. But I know not everyone is like this, so I'm going to give you an alternative. And I have it here in the assignment. If you don't want to go through and then set up your local install, you still want to watch the content, but you don't start coding until 9:40. I've given you a link to this playground. And this playground is awesome because it means you don't have to set up anything on your local system for TypeScript, but you still have to do a little more work. And here's what I mean by this: you're going to be writing here TypeScript, right? Which is going to look like in the beginning JavaScript, but you will quickly start to see the differences because types, meaning type, declaring types, and actually just what I would say, and reason I really like TypeScript more than I have before, is it just makes you a better coder because it makes you think through things. It makes you kind of consider your code more when you're writing it. And not only that, it gives you what's called a build system. Okay. But I just want to show you. So let me just say, if you're going to run locally, great, right? You're going to end up running. Matter of fact, let me just show you. Once you get through that setup, you end up setting up a configuration file and you do watch. And that way, TSC, SRC. Oh, I'm in Bash again. That's why. It happens more times than I'd like to admit. Let's do that. And then it's 36. Oh, yeah, I need to make sure I put that in there. Okay, so in here, I actually would go into now. he doesn't have you set up this folder structure until a little ways in, and I have you commit before you do that just because I want to see some of the setup files you've done. So this setup that you're looking at here with a build folder and a source folder is what happens about halfway through that video. So just know when you first start out, he really, I think, does a really nice job of explaining how when you run the command TSC, which is a TypeScript, and then he shows you the different ways to run, in this case, the main.ts extension versus JS, right? But he also shows you how to just watch for changes. So that means any coding I would do in my TypeScript file would get compiled, which is the idea of compiling. It's starting to compile, and then it will generate the main.js. Okay. Now, if you don't end up using, and I'm going to kind of repeat myself a little bit here, but I'm now going to show you, if you don't end up using the local system because you're just like, no, I couldn't get it running, I ran into issues. By the way, still come see me if you want some help with that, if you want to get it done. You can still do this by writing the code here and copying and pasting the code from here, right, to your local environment, still making sure the code's running. You can look at dev tools, right? You can do that other work as well. But instead of running that watch command or running that TypeScript command, you're, because look at what happens, right? So as soon as, that's a nice thing, is like as soon as you type, it actually generates the JavaScript. So this is TypeScript. So this would be what you copy and paste into your TS file. Again, this is, you build this about halfway through. You'll just create the files to begin with. But what and say this again, what I really also like about this is it introduces the idea of build systems. So we have this TypeScript that is actually building our JavaScript file for us. It's compiling it, compiling our TypeScript into JavaScript using this strict, which, by the way, you could do this regardless. Doesn't have to be for TypeScript. You could just put this, and I probably should have already done this, at the top of each file for your JavaScript, just because it's a good way to do kind of just another round of, good practices in your code. Okay, so just to be clear, you would be copying this into your TS file and this into your JavaScript file at those points in the assignment where I'm having you do commits. Okay, so this is the basic setup, and then I'll have you do another one after the build setup. So you'll end up watching all of the first video, all of the second one, and then about half of the third one. Because I think this gets you far enough in to give you the idea of types and how to do it for variables. Well, first, how to set up this local environment. Or again, if you're gonna use this, that's fine. But then gets you through, you know, understanding types and how you set them up, and inference versus annotation, right? And I think these are such good conversations and information to have. And then he starts talking about arrays, and then we end with objects. So I think this is enough content to at least give you the idea. It really, as I was doing this, made me want to actually just teach JavaScript, teach TypeScript in the JavaScript file or JavaScript class from the beginning. Now, I do have you create a README file, and just because I want to know who set this up locally and who ended up using the TypeScript playground. Again, it doesn't matter to me. I'm trying to just give you an alternative in case you ran into some of the issues I did. Okay, so that's the work you have for this first item for the last week of our class. I'll talk to you later.